The day after the weigh-in, SFC 173 was declared open. For martial arts fans from South Korea, this tournament, where 5 Korean fighters took part in 11 fights, became a real holiday. But unfortunately, the first performances of the Korean fighters did not live up to the expectations of the fans. At the moment, based on the results of 3 fights, there are 2 defeats and only 1 victory. And now it's the turn of the 4th athlete. Fighter Kang Yoon-jong landed a great hook to his opponent's face. Kang Yoon-jong did not miss the opportunity and continues to rain blows without stopping. And now the battle is over. Fighter Kang Yoon-jong wins by technical knockout. The stands support the winner with joyful cheers. He won after a long and stubborn struggle. The athlete's joy knew no bounds. Wheesung and his comrades were very happy about this. Yoon-jong did his best. It was a tough fight. His opponent put moral pressure on him, but the guy's will to win did not let him down. Director Sang-guk and Coach Park were discussing this fight. This was Yoon-jong's best result. According to the contract, this was his last fight. But now the agency can offer him better conditions when extending the contract. Now it's Wheesung's turn to fight. He's completely ready, and as always not the least bit worried. Finally, it was time for the main event. The commentators introduced the fighters. In the blue corner, MMA-style professional record, 7 wins in 7 matches, height 6 feet, weight 155 pounds, representative of Korean fighters Lee Wheesung. The fans greet him with an enthusiastic roar. According to forecasts, Wheesung's chances of winning are low. But no one really knows for sure. In the red corner, a professional record of 31 wins, 7 losses, height 6 feet 1 inch, weight 165 pounds. The most powerful financier of all time, Robert Wolf Taylor. Korean fans greet him generously, even though he is an opponent from another country. Therefore, he hardly feels any pressure. Taylor is incredibly huge. He weighs 4 kilograms more than Lee. In fact, it is extremely important for fighters to have a personal nutritionist to help them monitor their weight. In addition, sufficient recovery time played a role. Wheesung asked his opponent if he tried Korean cuisine, or if he couldn't because of his weight. Taylor replied that he now understands what the enemy is babbling about, and after the fight, he will definitely try all the Korean delicacies. After touching gloves, the athletes went to their places and prepared for battle. The judge announced the start of the fight. As soon as the gong rang, they crossed their fists, but both punches were blocked. The opponents retreat again and begin to pass each other to the left. Taylor is the first to approach. His fist flies forward, but it was a false blow, followed by a right hand to the body. Lee Wheesung responds with a right middle kick. Taylor's fist flies towards Lee Wheesung's face, but the guy shows excellent defense. At the same time, Wheesung throws another right middle kick, and immediately after that, he increases the distance with a pushing blow of his left leg. Taylor flies towards the net. Next, Lee Wheesung approaches the pushed-back Taylor and throws a brilliant high kick with his right foot. But Taylor is no less brilliant at dodging. Double yap, successive strikes with one hand and one leg, middle kick, push kick, and even head kick. Lee Wheesung doesn't skimp on his kicks these days. Without losing momentum, Wheesung approaches his opponent, swaying from side to side. This time, both strikes are delivered almost simultaneously. Wheesung's fist flies towards Taylor's face, but Lee Wheesung himself receives a counter-attacking left kick. Lee Wheesung begins to lose the battle against the clock. It was Taylor's turn to attack. He comes with successive strikes. Lee retreats on defense. He blocks blows one after another. Taylor was clearly up to something. He attacks with lightning speed. Wheesung understands what the enemy will do. Anticipating the left strike, Lee Wheesung counterattacks with a right hook. But Taylor has already read his movement and dives forward to avoid his opponent's fist. He is ready for an immediate counterattack, and that's why it's Lee Wheesung who gets the right hook. Taylor is pushing his opponent. The gap already seems quite noticeable. This is the skill of an old-timer in the lightweight division. Taylor. This match is definitely not going to be easy. Lee Wheesung gets hit again. It is pushed away from the center and shifted to the corner. Are Taylor's shoulders really an impregnable wall for him? Wheesung assessed his opponent as very strong with lightning-fast reactions. He perfectly parries the counterattacks that Wheesung carried out against Baekhoon, so he will not be easy to deal with. Most would feel helpless against him, but this is only fair to others, not to Wheesung. And he smiled. Taylor didn't like his opponent's smile. Is he smiling instead of writhing in pain? This means he still has some strength left. This is very much to Taylor's liking. He rushed to attack. Let the guy show what else he is capable of. Taylor instantly closes in on Lee, who throws a counterpunch to the body. Deceptive maneuver. Lee Wheesung uses an uppercut, but Taylor dodges it. He is no stranger to insight. He reads all of Wheesung's maneuvers perfectly. This time, after a feint to the head, Lee Wheesung lands a hook. But Taylor seemed to be expecting a blow after a successful block and was ready to respond. A counter straight from Taylor flies into Lee's face. But after the swing, a middle kick immediately flies from Lee Wheesung. It seems that Lee is also able to predict his opponent's moves. Taylor is very unsteady. Lee Wheesung can't miss this moment for anything. He lands 3 consecutive blows to the head. Lee's hand speed is incredible. And then a side kick to the body. Taylor pulled himself together again and stood up straight. Another middle kick from Lee Wheesung. This time Taylor blocks the blow. Lee Wheesung advances and approaches Taylor. He's going for a body shot, but this was a deceptive maneuver. Lee uppercuts again. Once again, Lee throws a hook after feinting a head kick. Taylor avoids the attack by leaning back, but this may affect his pace. Lee isn't far behind and lands another body kick. Taylor tries to answer with a swing, but a sweeping hook from Lee Wheesung comes from above. False blow again. Taylor is knocked down. He must have been hit in a vital spot and lost his balance, like a tree cut down at the base. Taylor quickly gets up and tries to regain the advantage, but Lee Wheesung turns out to be faster. He confuses the opponent again with a short strike, and immediately followed by a middle kick. Lee Wheesung prepares to throw his left hands, and again the kick. The advantage is on Lee Wheesung's side, but Taylor has great defense. He will block this blow easily, but it was not a middle kick, but a high kick. Taylor's defense failed. The stadium and commentators erupt in screams. Knockdown. This is already the second knockdown in such a short period of time. How is this possible? Why did Taylor fall? Sang-guk was very happy. Everything is going according to plan. A set of blows with a hook to the head, an uppercut to the body, and a middle kick. The repetition of such a series encourages an experienced fighter like Taylor to subconsciously read these blows, anticipating already familiar attacks. But such tactics distract the opponent. He gets used to the systematic pattern of incoming attacks, enters into a cycle, and simply does not notice when a powerful, unexpected blow suddenly arrives. Such tactics would not work against a stupid opponent, but Taylor, an experienced, intelligent fighter, is up against them. Taylor gets back up. He received significant damage. He tries to move to the side, but Lee Wheesung moves after him. Kick, hit, hit. Taylor is unable to dodge, so she takes all 3 hits. Taylor responds, but Lee Wheesung counters, which ultimately turns into a powerful counterattack from Lee Wheesung. Taylor gets countered in an attempt to launch a counterattack of her own. He seems completely helpless. Lee Wheesung lands a jumping knee kick and hits the top of the block. Then he grabs an again no kick. 3 no kicks in a row. Just a non-stop onslaught. Although Taylor manages to block them, his back is shaking violently. Will he really fail? Wheesung grabs the opponent's neck. Sang-guk screams at the top of his lungs for Wheesung not to carry out the takeover. Taylor breaks Wheesung's hold and throws an uppercut to avoid being grabbed. Lee Wheesung's head threw back and shook. Taylor swoops in and lands big right hands. Sang-guk is worried. Parrying the blow with his knee, Taylor caught the moment when the grip weakened and immediately threw an uppercut. This is what it means to be a seasoned Thai boxer. Taylor lands continuous straight punches. The situation changed in an instant. Reverse of reverses. Taylor feels that something is wrong with his jaw. It took him a long time to recover, but you can't really rest. He throws a backhand at Wheesung, but he dodges it. Taylor is at a loss as to how the enemy managed to evade. His focus of vision must be disrupted. But he decides that Wheesung just accidentally stumbled away. Lee Wheesung blocks on his next strike. Taylor knows this can't be an accident. His opponent had already come to his senses. He breaks distance with his opponent. Wheesung is completely unharmed and ready for further battle. This is simply a wonderful restoration of strength. Or did he not take any damage? Viewers cheer in support of Lee Wheesung. After watching Lee's fight with Brian, Taylor found the fighter to be very tough, but it seems his fitness was better than he expected. There are still 2 minutes left to damage Lee Wheesung, but Taylor decided not to overexert himself now and make a plan for the next round. Lee Wheesung comes out of the corner and starts moving. He is preparing to act. He attacks first and his movements are very fast. Wheesung continues with a series of strikes, but Taylor blocks and does a backstep. It's nice to watch these blocks and attacks. The fighters read each other's strategy like an open book. Taylor ducks left from Lee Wheesung, but he attacks with his left foot and gets into the block. He doesn't even give you a chance to retreat. This time Taylor is going to dodge to the right. But this movement has already been calculated, and the audience sees a stunning direct jump kick from Lee Wheesung. Taylor is also shocked by how his opponent quickly switches from right to left. Lee Wheesung moves in for another attack to prevent his opponent from escaping. Taylor throws a right hand, but Lee ducks under his arm and hits the opponent with his left hand. Even when Taylor tries to take an advantageous position, Lee Wheesung is already dominant. And when Taylor tries to get close to strike, He runs into multiple combinations of kicks, which makes the task much more difficult. Commentators say that Lee Hwi-sung uses the Ludwig technique, knock Muay Thai style. Taylor couldn't handle him. Sang-guk knows that this is a complete new style, combining the strengths of knock Muay Thai and the techniques of Wheesung himself. Taylor is backed into a corner. He feels pressure from Lee, and then the audience screams in amazement. Lee Hwi-sung makes a heart with his hands. Who else could put on such a spectacular show for Taylor? Lee Hwi-sung lands 3 blows in a row. It doesn't matter whether he hits Taylor's block or not, he continues to attack. It looks like he has no intention of slowing down. Taylor was already very tired of standing on defense. With such an onslaught, the psychological burden is enormous, and therefore it is extremely difficult to stop it. Taylor has calculated that Lee is now in a winning position. He believes that Taylor's momentum is lost, and he cannot act aggressively. In this case, the best defense is attack. And Taylor throws an unexpected hook. And then another one. Taylor attacked with a double hook. The stands erupted in screams. But Lee Hwi-sung counters and gets blocked by a double hook. Lee Hwi-sung throws a double hook to his opponent's face again. It looks like Taylor can't keep up with the changing rhythm of Lee's punches. His defense isn't holding up. Lee Hwi-sung seizes this opportunity to strike again. He delivers a heavy straight punch directly to the opponent's body, and carries out an inside kick on the opponent's leg to disrupt the center of balance. This is followed by an uppercut, and another straight to the body. Taylor is helpless. Top, middle, bottom. Random blows to different parts of the body simply drive him crazy. Taylor pushes Lee Hwi-sung to break the distance. However, Lee does not let him go, as if he is not going to give him a chance. He lands an unexpected direct blow. Taylor understands that if he continues to delay, it will only get worse, and he stops trying to increase the distance and starts acting aggressively. Sang-guk admires Taylor's skills. He is so skilled that he entered into battle even at the risk of running into a counterattack. However, Lee Hwi-sung dodges the direct strike. How well he moves, Taylor's punches just can't reach their target. It looks like Lee Hwi-sung can now easily avoid any of Taylor's combinations that he couldn't avoid in the beginning. He smiles. For Taylor, who has always had the upper hand in the exchange of blows, this is a very bad situation. But still Taylor continues to advance. And Lee Hwi-sung, whom he kept pushing back, is finally pressed against the net. This may be Taylor's last chance to regain momentum. But Lee Hwi-sung finds a gap in his defense and pushes his opponent away with a kick. And a powerful jumping knee strike follows. Lee pushes Taylor towards the net again, and another series of blows from Lee follows. Taylor was never able to turn the tide. The Korean public cheers in delight. Taylor thinks he still has a chance. His opponent wants to end the fight quickly. If Taylor timed the moment when Lee got carried away, he could completely turn the situation around. Taylor anticipates Lee's direct strike and ducks. He throws a punch to knock Wheesung out from under him, but he quickly regains his stance, and Taylor understands that it was not a direct blow, but simply a false attack, which Wheesung did to lure out his opponent. At this time, Lee deals a crushing blow to Taylor. Taylor falls to the floor amid deafening screams from the audience, and the fight ended by technical knockout in the first round. A young hunter from South Korea defeated the legendary Wolf, and his victory cry fills the octagon. After the match, Taylor approached Wheesung and said that the fight was great. Taylor never thought that Wheesung would prepare so well. Wheesung thanked his rival in broken English. Taylor held out his hand. Despite the defeat, he was very pleased. The athletes exchanged a firm handshake. At the press conference, Taylor noted that this was his 8th defeat. But it doesn't end there. He learned a lot from today's fight with Lee Hwi-sung, and he will use this experience as motivation to return to the octagon even stronger. And now all eyes turn to Lee Hwi-sung. The host congratulated him on his amazing victory. The most impressive thing about the fight was the Muay Thai style. How did Lee train? Wheesung replied that he found many videos online that Coach Ludwig posted. The athlete could only watch carefully. The presenter was surprised whether it was really possible to learn a fighting style only from video. Wheesung regretted that he could not bring Coach Ludwig to Korea. The audience laughed. He speaks so casually, as if all his victory is something taken for granted. Truly a brilliant fighter. At the end of the interview, Wheesung addressed Representative White. During the press conference, he said that he would give Wheesung a chance. The guy did everything White told him to do, so let White now take care of the rest like he promised. It will be nice if he starts focusing on Asia. It's all very popular here. The director of a large agency was thinking about the fight between Wheesung and Taylor. This competition was very unbalanced. It was logical to expect the victory of the 7th place in the ranking, Taylor, and not the recently debuted newcomer. But in the end, he won by technical knockout. It becomes obvious that this fighter is a real diamond. The secretary entered the office. He reported that the last competition resulted in fairly successful sales. The incoming profit alone is 10 million yuan, which is 1,680 million Korean won. If we add a total of 12 PPV competitions per year, then sales will triple the previous amount. But there are limits to expanding sales. To become a top-notch world-class organization, you need amazing content that attracts people. In other words, competitions with star fighters. Therefore, they really need this guy, Lee Wheesung. Wheesung was very busy at this time. He had regular interviews and appearances on shows. He was squeezed like a lemon. The guy didn't know. Changing clothes, taking pictures, and talking could be so tiring. Now he understood the difficulties Yoo-jin had gone through. He asked the guy who was the manager and scheduled the fighters how he ended up here. Previously, he practiced judo. He replied that due to problems with his knee, he retired from sports for some time. Then he left the sport completely. Yoo-jin became the goddess of hand-to-hand sports, and he became her manager. Now he is the busiest on their team, and I am very glad that I am contributing to the common cause. Wheesung thought that he had never had a heart-to-heart with a workmate before, and suggested going out for a drink sometime. Their conversation was interrupted by a call from James Caan. He said he needed to discuss something with Wheesung and made an appointment for him at the Caribbean Bay Water Park in Kendigo. An advertising request came from there. They want to shoot a commercial with Wheesung as a model. Wheesung's jaw dropped. Filming is scheduled for early May, and they are offering 70 million won as a one-time payment. Wheesung's jaw dropped even lower, and the eyes opened wide. James has read the contract, but it would be better if Wheesung read it himself. The guy replied that he would come. James asked at the end of the conversation if Wheesung knows such a fighter, Ricardo Rivera. Of course he knew. Welterweight is called the hell category due to the tough competition. Riviera is the third-ranked fighter, and although he has very good skills, he is a rather strange person due to the use of trash content. Therefore, his fame is accompanied by severe criticism from the outside. Wheesung asked what about Riviera, and James replied that the fighter was making a sarcastic comment towards Wheesung. James thought that Wheesung needed to see everything for himself and would send him the link. When Wheesung started watching the video that James sent him, he had no decent words left to describe it. What a bitch this Riviera is. By clicking on the link, Wheesung ended up on an MMA forum post with a translation of Riviera's post from his social networks, where he threw mud at Wheesung. He said that it was nonsense to pit a kid who had just debuted against the 7th place in the ranking. What kind of bribe did that bastard Taylor get? He should have at least won. And if this did not happen, then it is immediately clear that this son of a bitch from Korea is being stupidly buttered up. What bonus did Taylor get for lasting only one round? He spat in the face of everyone who worked hard and fought fair. And this Korean guy boasted that he learned new tricks from the internet? Just a disgrace. What did he say there? Enter the Asian market? How dare this mongrel even stutter about such a thing with such hack work? If Lee wants to make money surrounded by sweaty men, he better become a whore. This will suit him better. Wheesung decided that the guy was completely retarded to dump something like that on social media. He called James Caan and said that he had watched it, and did not understand why Riviera was saying this. They are not in the same weight category. James replied that Ricardo was known for his intense hatred of Asia. In any case, it won't be possible to ignore him. He won't easily leave behind, and this will hit Wheesung's image. James planned to respond through the official account of the agnetism as instructed. There will be no harm to Wheesung. Wheesung can, of course, answer directly, but wouldn't that be too burdensome? Wheesung replied that he would think about it. The next day, Wheesung apologized to all the coaches in his gym. Coach Park was yelling, why as soon as he opened his eyes, an article fell on him that Wheesung started a war of words with Riviera. The guy answered that he honestly wanted to discuss everything with his comrades, and only then act. But he accidentally went to his account page and saw how his fans defended him. And this bastard wrote a post in which he urged Wheesung not to hide behind the backs of fans and to enter into dialogue himself. Wheesung simply had to return the favor. Coach Park sarcastically asked why his student wrote that Riviera behaves like a squalor, throwing himself at people and waving his show-offs like maracas. Better yet, dip your nachos in the salsa and fill your belly. Wheesung modestly said that he himself did not expect such talent from himself. Coach Park wanted to kill the idiot, but then James intervened, who was sure that the guy had already realized everything. Now this has become a hot topic, and it will not be easy for everyone. But if criticism intensifies, they will have to respond. It's better not to mess with people like Riviera. Wheesung replied that everything can be solved at once. You need to negotiate, meet or call. He is ready to conduct a joint broadcast on the internet and ask Riviera all questions directly. James thought about it. Riviera is now looking to steal Wheesung's popularity. Attention in this world is money. If the fifth-ranked player and the top rookie cross paths, it will inevitably cause aggression. Moreover, his weight category is higher, so if you compete in lightweight even at the gradation limit, Wheesung will have an advantage. And it will also be possible to reduce the pressure on Wheesung. Even without a fight, a good picture of moral duty will be created. A conversation with Riera is a great opportunity to shut him up. But will Riviera agree? If you think positively, this is an opportunity to appear in front of the public, get rid of problems at once, and easily get advertising and sponsorship. Coach Park was not at all confident of success, but James explained to him that he did not see the whole picture yet. This, of course, smacks of provocation a little, but all you need to do is just talk in front of the camera. The coach knew that Wheesung would still do what he wanted and advised him to open his mouth less. James left the hall and went about his business. Park asked his student if he really wanted this. Wheesung replied no. Is he really considered a dog who, what's wrong, immediately rushes into a fight? He doesn't want to, but it's not enough to just have successful fights. Personal liability does not stop there. There are too many different interests colliding here that it is necessary to act not only in the ring. Therefore, Wheesung is obliged to do this, even if he doesn't want to. The coach wanted to kill Wheesung again. His deep thoughts are amazing, but who caused this incident with his bad tongue? Wheesung realized that he was finished and began to flee. Coach Park looked at the guy with a smile. It's been about 3 years since he got into MMA. At first he was busy caring only about himself, but now he has become someone who thinks about the whole team. Before the coach had time to come to his senses, his ward turned into a real fighter. Time flew and April arrived. At first, Riviera, as James expected, readily agreed to the meeting. Since there was no clear format for such meetings, James and Rivera's agent agreed on a method for conducting negotiations and quickly came to an agreement. The promotion took off quite quickly, and the content spread quickly. YouTube also sponsored streamers on sports topics. Although it was just a little viral marketing, the effect was amazing. The streamers' videos spread so quickly that their tags soon rose to the top of search results. It was decided to bring in an MMA critic who had previously analyzed Lee Wheesung's matches as a moderator. The response process was agreed upon by pre-selecting questions. It was decided to leave the rest to the discretion of the critic himself. The meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock in the morning in Seoul and at 17 o'clock in Sacramento, USA. And today, in the first week of April, after all the preparations were completed, the meeting finally took place. James warmly welcomed Wheesung to the main office. Wheesung looked very tired, but he had no choice. He had to do everything in his power. They began to read the proposed questions. The MMA critic hailed Wheesung. He was pleased to see him after analyzing all the guys' fights. Next to him sat Korean Kim, who will help the moderator if necessary. There's a minute left until the broadcast. The camera is on, but Riviera's chair is empty. The moderator nevertheless decides to start the broadcast and greets the audience. Wheesung is at a loss for words to describe the situation. In the comments, people are wondering where this shit Riviera is. The moderator suggests answering a Korean fan's question about Lee Wheesung for now. He asks what Lee thinks about Riviera being late. Wheesung opens his mouth. Riviera is just cheap and has no brains. Apparently this bastard doesn't have the sense to just look at his watch. It's Sunday in Korea now and they've been preparing since 6 in the morning. But this Mexican idiot is wasting their time and waving maracas in his ass. When he arrives, Wheesung is sure that he will make stupid jokes and say that he ate nachos. Riviera appears on screen and quips that he was late because he was eating nachos. So now we can move on to a full dialogue, and the first question is for Riviera. The dispute between the fighters began with his criticism of Lee. There is an opinion that this is an attempt to play on someone else's popularity. What does Riviera think about this? Rivera recalls that he is one of the top 3 welterweight fighters. He has 12 fights and 10 wins in the SFC alone, and Lee fought only 2 fights in the SFC. And who is more popular here? Wheesung interrupted him with a question. Is he bragging about his 2 defeats? Riviera was speechless from such impudence. The critic asked Lee not to interrupt Riviera and wait for his turn to answer questions. And he asked Riviera to tell the audience about the reason for the dispute. Rivera wondered if there really was any special reason needed to criticize a bad fight and a terrible interview. Lee played only 1 round and received a bonus. From his words, he learned the Nak Muay Thai style, which was invented by the traitor of the Alpha team, of which Riviera is a member, Ludwig, by watching videos on YouTube. This is the reason why Riviera spoke out. The moderator asked the following question. Ricardo mentioned that Lee receives special treatment from SFC because he is of Asian descent. Doesn't he find this a very incriminating statement? Ricardo replied that everyone knows that the Asian market is the new world, so SFC has no other choice but to use Asian players. but asking someone to elevate themselves in order to nurture this endeavor is extremely vile. This creates a feeling of exclusion among non-Asian players. The moderator said that Ricardo means that Lee Hwi-sung's statement is an act of depriving other players of opportunity. So why did he, in his criticism, suggest that an unspecified fighter train his tongue instead of his fists? Rivera replied that he just wanted to ask Lee if he really chose the right direction. Nowadays, anyone is ready to do anything to attract attention. But the quality of fights is decreasing because people without the proper skills don't even know what to do. And Lee Wheesung is the one who creates this unhealthy atmosphere. Everyone listened to Rivera's thoughts, and now Lee Wheesung can say what he thinks about this matter. Wheesung laughed loudly. Even in balabalism, you need to know when to stop. It was so pathetic it was even funny. Riviera is a little disingenuous. When Wheesung studied who Riviera was in conflict with, it turned out that these were usually extremely famous fighters whose names were well known. There was not a single person outside the rating. This cretin simply cannot break into the news on his own. He is nothing more than a parasite that feeds on scraps. How can one not be ashamed to make a living by stealing from someone else's fame? Riviera replied that there was no point in responding to this nonsense. Wheesung was unstoppable. If Riviera is asked to speak after the fight, will he do so? Competitions in Seoul? If Riviera is asked to open them, will he agree? If they give him a bonus, he won't take it? The composition of the SFC is just over 200 people. 550 fights are held a year. That's an average of 2 fights per fighter, and Hwi-sung Lee fought in 2 fights. From whom does he take what? Even if it takes away? Everyone takes care of their own bowl of rice. After all, Riviera himself is trying to use Wheesung for his own benefit with his aggressive provocations. But how did Wheesung prevent the 200 remaining fighters? And with Nak Muay Thai, he calls Ludwig a traitor, and he himself resembles those fighters who are not capable of anything without doping. The fighter who ranks second in the SFC rankings in the featherweight category, Andrew Otis, intervened in the dialogue from Riviera. He advised the Asian Wheesung not to spout so much nonsense just because he knows how to open his mouth. Wheesung asked what kind of scarecrow was talking to him, and why the hell was it going on air. He immediately understood this guy's intentions. He also wanted to remind everyone of his existence. And then an Asian baby appeared, weighing 11 kilograms less, and they decided to devour him immediately. But Wheesung doesn't avoid anyone in his weight class. Rivera really wants to fight with Wheesung. Let him admit it honestly. Finally, Wheesung called Rivera and his friend brainless idiots. Riviera did not see the point in further conversation. He said that they would see each other later and turned off the connection. The moderator said in confusion that without Riviera there was no point in continuing the broadcast. Wheesung suggested that Ricardo appreciated his humor and was offended. The moderator expressed the opinion that the most important question for viewers is whether the fight between Wheesung and Rivera will take place. Wheesung replied that he was not going to follow anyone's lead, but if the fans so desire, he will look at this opportunity in a positive way. The critic was shocked. Will Lee Wheesung fight Riviera? Wheesung couldn't give a definite answer right now. He didn't know if Riviera himself would want this. Officials will need to be consulted. This was just his personal answer for now. The moderator recalled that 60,000 viewers were watching them, many of whom approved of Wheesung's decision. His statement will be considered official. Wheesung said that, of course, if fans want to see this fight, then his statement can be considered official. The critics shouted that it was incredible. Viewers of the broadcast were the first to learn the plans for the fight of the most popular fighter. The broadcast ended. James congratulated Wheesung for his excellent work. He shut Riviera up and was very convincing. Wheesung, in turn, thanked James for his excellent work as a translator. James asked if Wheesung is aware of the situation. Riviera is ranked 3rd in the welterweight division. He has strong skills. If Wheesung loses, everything he has worked hard for will burst like a bubble. Is he ready to take such a risk? Of course, the guy was ready and didn't doubt it for a minute. The situation developed quickly. The 30-minute video quickly spread throughout countries where the MMA market was developed and received 3 million views. Articles appeared in the sports media that analyzed the fight between Wheesung and Riviera. The official SFC account also reposted the video, and Dave left a comment that he would respond as soon as possible. Soon after, Rivera agreed to fight Wheesung. 9 days later on Monday, Wheesung received a fight offer from Rivera. When the SFC promotes a mixed suit fight between fighters of different weight classes, the teams directly agree on the terms. Allowing the parties to negotiate is a measure to avoid holding the SFC liable, even if problems arise. The conditions put forward by the Riviera team sounded like this. The fight will be held from September to October. The match will take place in lightweight, but the limit under the contract is set at 73.5 kilograms. The venue will be California or Nevada. Other rules correspond to the internal regulations of the SFC. Coach Park was unhappy with the conditions. They crushed all the conditions to themselves. James reminded him that this was just a suggestion. The coach believed that Team Alpha was in California. They are essentially saying they will compete at home. The coach was ready to agree to the states, but it would be better to have the fight in Nevada. The coach demanded that the fight be moved to an earlier date. Riviera will adjust to the lightweight around mid-August. James believed that main and co-main events should also be avoided, events that attract great interest from the public. For example, several famous athletes can meet in one evening. If your schedule is full of press conferences or public training sessions, it may be difficult to control your condition. Coach Park believed that they should take part in the preliminary competitions. Further, if the weight limit according to the contract is 73.5 kilograms, then it can go up to 85. Fighting someone taller than that at lightweight is just crazy. Wheesung agreed with all the suggestions. He only wanted to make one change, which left both the coach and James speechless. In the training room, journalists interviewed Ricardo Rivera. Why did he join Team Alpha, which trains mainly lightweights? Ricardo replied that Team Alpha was the most prestigious in the world. There are not many gyms that have produced numerous champions and can boast of a consistent training process. Is there any special training for Team Alpha? There is nothing like that. All athletes do the same thing: fundamentals and physical training. The difference lies in the analytical skills of the coach. Team Alpha coaches are excellent at analyzing opponents and suggesting appropriate strategies. The journalist asked, "Don't other teams do the same?" Rivera responded that there are many trainers who can train fighters, but less than 1% can fill the gaps and ease the excesses. And this 1% of trainers work in the Alpha team. The next question was, will Riviera's fight with Lee Hwi-sung take place? Riviera asked to turn off the camera and secretly whispered in the journalist's ear that there was no official announcement yet, but they had sent a proposal and were waiting for a response. The match should be expected in about 5 months. This will be announced soon. At this time, Riviera was called over by the coach. He received a response from Wheesung's team with an offer. Riviera read the answer with amazement. Is that idiot Wheesung going to fight him at welterweight? Also, is the match supposed to take place in August? The coach noted that this was good. No one would blame them for the advantage being on their side. The rest of Team Alpha's proposals remained unchanged. Ricardo did not believe that the Korean wanted to beat him in both weight categories. This idiot just doesn't know what he's getting into. After discussing the fight with Riviera, both teams drew up a contract and sent it to the SFC. While awaiting notification from the SFC, Wheesung began his own training program in preparation for the match. During the week, he did both athletic and team training to improve his fighting skills and improve his base. He had no rest. He participated in promotional events, visited companies of sponsors, and participated in photo shoots. And he completed the filming of a commercial for the water park, which James Caan had agreed upon. In such a busy schedule, a month flew by and the middle of hot May arrived. Coach Park said that the SFC offer had arrived. Wheesung got the fight with Riviera. The date of the competition is the last Saturday of August. The fight will take place in Las Vegas, Nevada. They took into account all the requirements, and this means that Wheesung is important for SFC. Now all that remains is to seriously prepare for the battle. Wheesung doesn't need to bulk up, although he can't fight a man who weighs 90 kilograms. Wheesung didn't understand what to do then. If he gains weight, he will lose a lot. There is a limit to the use of force. Therefore, you need to increase your strength while maintaining your speed. Wheesung needs to fit into the main weight class, but if he makes weight for this match, it will be difficult to cut it down later to return to the lightweight category. 84 kilograms is ideal for a guy. A difference of 3 kilograms may seem small, but even it makes a difference. Even a deviation of 1 kilogram creates a large load on the body. But this can also affect whether a fighter will kick his opponent when struck. Of course, the weight is determined based on the optimal indicator, taking into account the balance of endurance, speed, and strength. So Coach Park set out to adapt strength training to weight gain. Wheesung's diet will be based on carbohydrates, proteins, and minerals. Let the guy get ready for it to be hard for him. Wheesung didn't see any difference from what he has now. The coach looked closely at the guy and asked if he was tired. He hasn't had a chance to rest for 3 years now. Lee Wheesung participated in tournaments on average, once every 4 months. If you subtract 3 months of training, only 1 month remains. And excluding the time spent on schedules outside of rehabilitation training, it turns out that he worked without rest. Wheesung reported that he was not the least bit tired. Of course, his training is intense, but as the fight approaches, he becomes more and more excited. But that's how it should be. How would he do this hard work if it did not give him pleasure? He wants to fight even more. The coach looked at his student silently. Most MMA fighters quit due to financial difficulties, the torment of the mental pressure of fighting, and the frustration of not being able to move up. Therefore, MMA has never been considered an enjoyable sport. The coach thought that no matter how much Wheesung won, the pressure might cause him to give up. But the fact that he can still be happy in anticipation of a new fight shows that Wheesung is special. He is the star, not someone else. The coach finished the meeting and invited the guy to have dinner together today. He won't be able to eat whatever he wants anytime soon. Wheesung happily accepted his invitation. The tabloids were printing news about White's representative's official statement about Lee Wheesung and Riviera at SFC 269. Lee Wheesung takes a monumental step by choosing to fight Riviera and becomes a legend in Korean MMA. Director X1 clutched his head. Major main and co-main events are being prepared, and everyone is talking about a fighter who has only had 3 fights. How long has it been since he beat Bryan and Taylor to reach 5th place in the rankings? And now he has a fight at welterweight, ranked 3rd. The director would not have believed it if he had not seen it himself. Advertising sales from the last X1 tournament amounted to 7 billion. The results of entering the Chinese market are clearly visible. However, in markets other than Northeast Asia, X cannot even be compared to SFC. No matter how powerful X1 is in China, if they cannot enter the North American market, X1 will have no choice but to remain a peripheral group. That's why they need Wheesung. He is the most popular Asian who constantly attracts attention. He is a hit that no one can outshine. Director X1 decided that now was the right time. He told Secretary Do Shik that they must invite Wheesung no matter what. He has a contract for 3 fights, and this fight is his last. Do Shik replied that it is unknown whether Wheesung will win or lose this fight. There is no point in rushing headlong. The director replied that after the battle, it would be too late. Their agency should invite the guy now to give him confidence. Do Shik insisted that the director was in too much of a hurry, to which he replied that he was looking at Wheesung's growth trend and felt that everything would be fine. Now they can get it for a relatively small amount. But if you turn to him after winning a battle, you may not receive it. They need to offer him something so strong that he will think about whether to renew his contract with SFC. The initial fee will be 1 billion won, and the fight fee will be twice the amount received from the SFC. Do Shik's jaw dropped at such proposals. He exclaimed loudly. The director replied that this was the upper limit of the amount, so it could be adjusted. Do Shik agreed to do everything, but demanded a bonus for completing such a difficult task. During this time, Wheesung was doing strength training. Coach Park informed him that from now on, preparations for the fight begin. Wheesung noticed that there were more than 2 months left until the end of the training period. Their conversation was interrupted by a call from James Khan. When the coach heard what James wanted to tell him, he could not resist and screamed loudly, "How can the fight schedule be adjusted? What does X1 want?" James said that X1 had sent proposals for a contract, and the terms could not be ignored. The initial payment is 700 million won, 150 million per fight, and a 10% bonus for victory. If Wheesung wins, he will receive a base salary of 10 million won. There is room for growth and a contract for 3 fights. Coach and Wheesung together said, "Wow." Wheesung noticed that he was still part of the SFC. Why did X1 send him the contract now? The SFC has priority rights to negotiate a contract extension within 90 days after the expiration of the current agreement. First, SFC will provide its terms and conditions, and Wheesung will review them. However, if X1 offers his terms in advance, SFC will not be able to offer lower ones. They will have to either back down or offer a contract with at least X1 terms. From Wheesung's perspective, it's a win-win situation. Regardless of whether he wins or loses, he can sign a contract with X1 on favorable terms. If he wins, SFC will have to treat him better than X1, or they will lose Wheesung. Moreover, when it comes to renewing his contract with SFC, Wheesung's team may face a problem. Now that Wheesung is in the rankings, when he renews his contract, there is a clause related to his championship. And this point is quite toxic. If the contract expires while Wheesung is champion, then his contract will automatically be renewed for 1 year. It will be tied to the SFC. All this will be included in the next contract. Not only is it difficult to hold all 3 ranked battles in a year, but the SFC may intentionally not organize them. In fact, this is the same as not having the opportunity to move to another organization if you remain the champion. There is nothing you can do about this point. If Wheesung is going to move somewhere other than the SFC, then this must be done before he became a champion in the ratings. That is, after the fight with Riviera. Wheesung thought about it. The reason he was able to grow so quickly was largely due to the fact that he competed on the world stage with the best fighters in the world. It's unclear whether this advantage will continue in X1. However, he had 2 more months to think about it. But James had another immediate message. 3 fighters who were scheduled to compete in the 268 tournament failed the doping test, and 1 did not pass the medical examination. Because of this, 4 fights will not take place. Therefore, the lineup for Tournament 268 is supplemented by fighters from Tournament 269. Coach Park quickly decided that in this case, Wheesung's fight should take place in mid-July. James replied that for now this is only a proposal, and there is time to think about it until tomorrow. Coach Park immediately refused. There is only a month left. Wheesung has just gained weight. It will be difficult for them to complete the preparation in 1 month. James suggested sticking to the original education. The main event fighters have already moved on to Tournament 268, so Wheesung's fight will be scheduled as a co-main event. But there are scheduling problems. Wheesung noted that it would also be normal to fight in July. Coach Park looked at his abnormal student in amazement. Rivera was the best in the NCAA. He is a top 4 fighter in the US. He will completely drain Wheesung's stamina. Wheesung responded by letting the coach watch the video on his phone. Puck's eyes widened. This is a video from yesterday's training session. Wheesung measured 3 units and calculated the weight of this disc. 180 kilograms. This is more than twice Wheesung's weight. And squats and bench press are 240 and 260 kilograms. Total for 3 units is 680. Wheesung added that this is not the end of the video. He was sparring with Yoon. In this video, he made a bet with Yoon that he would survive 3 rounds with a takedown. Any transfer of the opponent to the ground within 3 minutes. And Wheesung held out. Riviera is in the same weight class as Yoon, so Wheesung thought it would be great practice. Coach Park thought that Wheesung had not only caught up with the original plan, but had also surpassed it. It was decided to fight in July. Riviera was hanging out at a club with friends. He told funny stories from his fights. But suddenly the friends fell silent. His coach appeared behind Ricardo. Riviera began to swear that he had not violated the regime and drank only soda. But the coach told him to go out. Riviera followed him and said that 1 beer does not mean anything. There are still 2 months before the fight. The coach answered harshly that there was 1 month left. Riviera was amazed by this. The coach replied that they agreed to adjust the schedule and the fight would be in July. And experts give 6 to 4 results of the battle. Riviera laughed. Welterweight fight in July and they give Lee Wheesung 4? Are you crazy? The coach replied that they gave 4 to Riviera. He was petrified by such a turn. Who's lobbying for this asshole? How could he be given 6? The coach asked if Ricardo truly believed that Taylor lost on purpose. He even organized a training camp and spent a lot of money on recruiting tactical coaches and sparring partners. Riviera laughed. It was a competition for scumbags. In any case, he is ahead in weight category and fighting skills. The coach argued that this could be compensated for by technique and mechanics of battle control. And it just so happens that Lee Wheesung is really good at this. Riviera replied that he could afford to rest, especially since his sparring partner was busy today. The coach could not contain his indignation. This is not a reason to drink beer. If Lee Wheesung were in his place, he would once again beat the punching bag. He demanded an apology from Ricardo and a promise that this would not happen again. But this was not expected from Riviera. The coach demanded that Riviera give up all entertainment. We must not let our guard down. Riviera agreed grimly. Lee Wheesung is smaller than him, weaker, and his fighting skills are inferior to the Rivierans. If Ricardo loses, it will mean he didn't try hard enough. Looking after the departing Riviera, the coach thought that his ward was very pathetic. The fight between Wheesung and Riviera has been postponed to July, and it will take place in the middle of the SFC with the 268th third fight. Although there was a lot of talk about it, the reaction was mostly positive. In the midst of the turmoil, July arrived and Wheesung flew to Las Vegas. Now he didn't think going to X1 was such a bad idea. You won't have to fly for 11 hours. Everyone was so tired that they never wanted to fly to the US again. The guys got out of the elevator and ran into a crowd of people greeting them. They weren't very friendly. They all chanted the word fall. Coach Park had no doubt that after the last fight this would be the case. One of those who met Wheesung sent him an obscene message. Wheesung swore angrily in response, "Who dares to send him?" He rushed into the crowd which did not stop shouting "fuck you" and fall. Wheesung gave them the middle finger and told them to shut up. It was the first time James had seen a fighter swear and fight with fans. Wheesung modestly lowered his eyes and admitted that he still doesn't know how to do that. Wheesung's group of coaches demanded that he think about his behavior. There is hardly anyone other than Wheesung who rushes at people in the same way. James stopped the argument and asked Wheesung if he was interested in open training. The lightweight champion has been out for 6 months due to injury, so there will be an interim championship match between number 1 Felipe Alves and number 2 Kuz Maguire. James thought it would be a good idea to take a look at who Wheesung might fight in the future. Wheesung agreed with him. A few days later, open training of fighters took place. The spectators were delighted. They whistled and shouted. Wheesung watched the fighters in the ring from the audience. James asked him how he rates fighters. Wheesung replied that he didn't expect their preparation to be so bad. James replied that this is a kind of fan service and should not be given much importance to it. The host noticed Wheesung in the hall and invited him to the ring. Wheesung did not expect this turn of events. The presenter was pleased to meet the famous Mr. Lee. He was a fan. The host asked if Wheesung was here to watch Alves and Maguire. Wheesung confirmed his guess. The host asked if Mr. Lee had enough time to prepare for the fight, since it was postponed. Wheesung replied that he was ready to fight the moment he received the invitation. Didn't he meet Riviera on the streets of Las Vegas? Wheesung admitted that he wandered around the streets for 3 days, but didn't even see this degenerate's nose. The host replied that Mr. Lee could now tell Riviera everything he wanted to say. Wheesung immediately responded that this idiot had been bad-mouthing him online, so he wanted to ask Director Beck. If Wheesung loses, his ring name will be Mouth until his next fight. And if he wins, Riviera will have to change his name to fucking Nachos until his next fight. The presenter laughed and said he hoped Principal White would see it positively. At that moment, Riviera himself emerged from the crowd of fans. He asked the host if he could get into the ring. Of course you can. Riviera heard everything and could not ignore it. Wheesung waited for him to say. Riviera asked, "Is Wheesung's ring name just a joke? No fighter pride at all?" Wheesung replied that judging by the way Riviera exploded, he has no brains in the first place. Let Riviera not attack but simply answer. Riviera grinned. He himself will decide what Wheesung will be called in the ring. Asshole suits him best. Wheesung replied that he would never be called that in the ring. He extended his hand to Riviera and wished him luck. Fucking Nachos Riviera. Both fighters looked into each other's eyes. The large hall was full of spectators, who enthusiastically supported the fighters in the ring. Wheesung was doing a warm-up. Sang-guk wondered if his body seemed too heavy. Wheesung replied that there was no problem. Sang-guk asked why Wheesung started thinking about his stage name, and why did he come up with such an idiotic idea. Wheesung didn't even think, he just blurted out what first came to mind. A ring name is a brand and a symbol. It may be nice to attract people's attention, but that doesn't mean a guy can run around naked on the street. Sang-guk was very annoyed. From now on, Wheesung needs to think carefully before bringing up the topic of his stage name. Sang-guk came up with a good name for the guy. Next time he can use it. He didn't have time to name it. Coach Park entered the room and warned that the undercard fight had just ended, and it was time to start preparing for the main card fights. Sang-guk decided it was time to do some stretching to warm up his muscles. The third fight of the main card of SFC 268 begins. Lee Wheesung comes out first in the blue corner. His greeting is unique. He changed the text Macho Man to Nacho Man. The commentators remind viewers that Lee and Rivera made a bet. The loser will use the name given to him by the winner until the next fight. The crowd chants the name Lee has dubbed the Riviera. Fucking Nachos. In the red corner is Ricardo Riviera. He burst into the hall screaming, his loud roar echoing throughout the arena. If Lee Wheesung wins this fight, he will be entered at both lightweight and welterweight. If he loses, it will serve as a springboard for Riviera. The winner of this confrontation will win a big jackpot. Perhaps that's why Lee started the battle with glances. After all, a lot of grievances have accumulated between them. As expected, they went to their corners, ignoring the touch of gloves. The fight has begun. The fighters stand in the center of the octagon. Lee Wheesung starts from the right side stance. The goal is to increase the distance and prevent Riviera from attacking freely. It's not easy for Riviera to get close to his opponent. He carefully looks for open spaces. And Lee Wheesung makes the first move. He starts with a series of right hands, and then follows with a straight left. Without pausing, Lee Wheesung lands a body kick. Riviera launches a counterattack. Wheesung dodges a hook aimed at the head. Hook from Riviera interrupts Lee Wheesung's attacks. Riviera continues to land punches with successive hooks, and tries to overcome the defense. He grabs Lee Wheesung by the waist. Just like a rhinoceros, he throws his opponent into the bars. Riviera is pressing with all his might. It appears his plan is to use wrestling techniques to wear down his opponent against the wall. It's a shame that Riviera rushed forward when Wheesung had not yet taken the correct position. Not only is Riviera a wrestler, but he also has a good sense of striking. It's not for nothing that he takes third place in the SFC. Riviera lands a jab to Lee Hwi-sung's inner thigh. He plans to immobilize him from the very beginning. But Lee Hwi-sung pushes Riviera to the side with a knee strike and tries to change position. He completes the change of positions. During the knee strike, he completely destroyed the support. A left elbow immediately flies to Riviera, and Lee Hwi-sung immediately breaks the distance. The first critical moment has been overcome. Sang-guk supports Hwi-sung. It works with Rivera too, as he uses a combination of wrestling moves. Hwi-sung needs to keep this up a couple more times. This time, Lee Hwi-sung performed a traditional stance. Once he was sure that the stance had changed, Riviera had nothing to worry about anymore. He becomes close to Lee, bypasses the defense with a double strike, and sends a direct blow. Lee ducks with a head slip. Along with dodging, Lee attacks with a left and right hook. Riviera puts up a defense, and then comes the counterattack. Even his defense inspires fear. Lee Hwi-sung, pushed back by the opponent's strength, increases the distance with a backstep. Sang-guk sees that the defense Riviera used is Crazy Monkey Guard, a defensive move that involves bending the upper body deeply and raising the arms upward for a cross-kickback defense. This technique is based on actions similar to those of monkeys. Although it is difficult to use for a counterattack, this is to be expected from Riviera. He has a great sense of combat. Hwi-sung and Riviera scout each other's openings. Sang-guk yells at Hwi-sung not to push, but to try from afar. Lee Hwi-sung changes position again. Riviera approaches him again, and at the same moment he tries to carry out a lower grip. He seems to fall to the ground. Lee Hwi-sung blocks Riviera's shoulders with both hands to prevent the maneuver. Lee Hwi-sung's leg slips out of Riviera's grasp. Riviera's idea failed, and he quickly rose, immediately landing a double hook. Once again, Riviera tries to take over, but he was blocked by an oncoming tripwire. Riviera's legs slide around the ring. Lee Hwi-sung handled the critical situation and broke the distance. Now Lee Hwi-sung carries out a series of continuous strikes, but Riviera has taken guard and is sharply approaching. This is very impressive. Riviera perfectly performs Crazy Monkey Guard. At the moment of rapprochement, Riviera immediately throws a hook. Instead of counterattacking, Lee increases the distance. Seeing Riviera's flexible movements, you can understand why he is called the best wrestler. Using step, Lee Hwi-sung swings. There is no other choice. After all, with the slightest mistake, the risk of getting caught is too great. Will Hwi-sung be able to regain his original pace? Even though Riviera is a wrestler, Hwi-sung takes a lot of hits from him. And if Hwi-sung tries to move aside, Riviera immediately blocks his path with his hook. He not only knows how to attack, but also how to strike and then retreat. Hwi-sung could not even imagine that his opponent was so smart and intelligent. While Hwi-sung is thinking, he gets an overhand hook from Riviera. Lee Hwi-sung flies towards the net with all his might. Hwi-sung is cornered. Riviera does a powerful instep. He understands that Lee has decided to launch a counterattack and wants to take advantage of this. Lee Hwi-sung extends his hand, but Riviera notices this and puts up a guard. This is dangerous. He risks running into a counterattack. The commentator bursts into screams. Lee Hwi-sung did it. The uppercut hits the target. And then Lee delivers a direct blow to his opponent's face. This is followed by direct blows from Lee Hwi-sung. Riviera is helpless. What happened to Riviera? How come he missed a punch to the upper body? That's how it was intended. Lee Hwi-sung deliberately excluded the uppercut from his punches in order to lull his opponent's vigilance. This is a great strategy based on Riviera's habits. Riviera lowers his stance and aims for his opponent's chest. He grabs him by the hamstrings, and stretching becomes impossible. As soon as Riviera blocks the movement, Lee Hwi-sung immediately switches to one leg and turns to the right to drop him on his knees. Riviera grabs Lee Hwi-sung's back as he tries to get up. At the same time, he puts his foot up. Lee trips Riviera's leg and his grip begins to loosen. Lee grabs Riviera's knee, makes a grab and lifts the opponent into the air, and throws him into the ring. Riviera is very tight. Lee Hwi-sung catches the moment and performs a back mount, after which he delivers a series of strong blows to the enemy. Having risen to his feet again, Riviera breaks the distance. Lee Hwi-sung tells his opponent to come to his senses. Now the real battle will begin. Lee Hwi-sung begins to step forward. Blows rain down on the Riviera like hail. The speed is such that it is quite difficult to catch the right moment. Riviera launches a counterattack. Lee ducks with a head slip. Riviera tries to move out of the way with a counter-strike, but Lee Hwi-sung had already anticipated this. Riviera puts up a defense, but it's too late. Lee Hwi-sung throws a hook. The next blow to the body folds Riviera in half. Riviera tries to respond with a hook, but catches a swing and another blow to the body. Riviera moves forward and throws another hook. However, Lee Hwi-sung backsteps. Lee Hwi-sung's front kick caught his opponent's chin, which was not properly protected. Having missed the blow, Riviera was unable to maintain his balance and was thrown back. Lee continues to throw punches, not allowing his opponent to come to his senses. Riviera throws out a fist to break up the flurry of punches, but misses. Lee Hwi-sung dodges all of his opponent's punches using only his upper body. He does stick and move. Riviera can't even move. Lee Hwi-sung is a master of lightning strikes. Riviera counterattacks. It was an unexpected blow, but Hwi-sung blocks it. After a couple of fake attacks, Riviera makes a grab. Lee reacts by abruptly going down. But the capture was also fake. Riviera lands 2 straight punches. However, Lee blocked everything. He has amazing reflexes. But the opportunity was missed. Riviera steps forward and attacks again. But Lee Hwi-sung manages to get away from everything even in such a situation. But now he is pressed against the bars. Riviera seemed to be doing just that. He clearly won't miss this chance. He makes an unexpected back kick. But Lee Hwi-sung had already jumped aside. How is this possible? He predicted a blow that was impossible to see and dodged it in advance. This time Lee hits from a unique stance. Riviera fell for a fake kick. He lowered his guard and now risks getting hit in the face. Lee Hwi-sung goes on the offensive. Riviera retreats and blocks, but unlike Lee's previous position, he doesn't have much freedom. Riviera is almost at the net. Lee Hwi-sung tenses his legs. Now there will be a direct kick from Lee Hwi-sung. But instead of a straight kick, Lee grabs the fence and performs a spinning kick. However, Riviera manages to dodge, although Lee's punch barely missed the top of his head. Hwi-sung had a big swing. Now he doesn't have time to change his stance and Riviera can counterattack. But instead of stopping, Lee Hwi-sung continues his debauchery, and he elbows Riviera in the face. Riviera is knocked down by Lee Hwi-sung. Here it is, savage art in all its glory. Riviera stands up and slowly approaches Lee, who has lowered his guard. Lee teases him, beckoning him closer. However, Riviera does not succumb to provocation, but only strengthens his defense. Without any preparation, Wheesung strikes directly. Lee Hwi-sung continues to furiously break through the defense, but Riviera does not give in yet and retreats. Lee stubbornly aims only at the enemy's body. This time he entered the clinch and rained down punches to the body. Can Riviera survive? As soon as Riviera weakened his defense for a second, he immediately caught an uppercut. Blood pours down Riviera's face, but he was able to reduce the damage by tilting his head slightly. A front kick follows, but Riviera intercepts his leg mid-flight. Having pinned Lee Hwi-sung, Riviera tries to hit his supporting leg, and the Korean fighter is now in danger of a takedown. Lee Hwi-sung is great. He managed to avoid the blow and at the same time hit Riviera with his knee. Riviera is pushed to the net. Lee Hwi-sung continues to press with direct blows, not allowing the opponent to come to his senses. How many shots did Riviera miss? No matter how persistent he is, things will take a dangerous turn for him. He understands that at this rate he will lose. He needs to somehow turn the situation around. There is only one way to do this. He grabs Lee Hwi-sung's legs. Somehow Hwi-sung managed to prevent the top hold, but now his legs are completely immobilized. From now on, it is a battle of strength and endurance. Hwi-sung is still holding on. Despite the restriction in his movements, he resists the onslaught of the Riviera with all his might. Riviera doesn't understand how Lee can resist his power. He is inferior to him in weight, and was actively attacking before. In the end, Riviera can't stand it anymore and his hands fall. As soon as Lee Hwi-sung had the opportunity, he immediately took his opponent to the guillotine. Riviera got scared and quickly got up. Now he has nowhere to go. He grabs Lee Hwi-sung and pushes him forward. He plans to hold ground and pound. Lee grabs Riviera and flips him in the air. Instead of the performed technique, Riviera ends up in the mount position. He dug his own hole. This is a critical moment for Riviera. He doesn't believe that he's losing to some Asian guy. But the fight is already over. Lee Hwi-sung wins at the end of the first round by submission. To the roar of the audience, the commentator asks, could anyone else have defeated Riviera by submission? Could anyone else even get to this point in the first round in a similar situation? Riviera's will to win until the very end was amazing, but in such a situation, he had no other option than to give up. It looks like he doesn't have any serious consequences. Lee immediately responded to the referee's command to stop the fight. Lee Hwi-sung is a winner again. He remembers the stage name Sang-guk chose for him. Blessed, one who receives a blessing beyond his own talent. In the evening, the entire team congratulated Hwi-sung on his victory. He said he was confident he would beat Riviera. Coach Park ridiculed him for having such an ego. Hwi-sung replied that even if he becomes champion, Coach Park will call him an asshole. But that Pak said that he would bow to the guy's feet for the title of champion. Hwi-sung asked Sang-guk to remember these words, but Sang-guk gloomily said that the guy was just lucky. Hwi-sung screamed loudly in anger. Junghwan recalled that Riviera not only lost, but also received a humiliating nickname. Hwi-sung replied that they don't insist on it. You shouldn't go too far after all. They are all sailing in the same boat. They make a living by painting each other's faces. The fight was over, and Sang-guk had news for Wheesung. As of today, he is no longer bound by a contract with SFC. James promised to rip off more from the SFC, but some unpleasant details cannot be avoided. X1 won't be left behind either, so you'll have to really gather your courage. 2 weeks after the fight, many MMA-related articles appeared in the media. Some articles, which talked about the possibility of Wheesung becoming the first Asian men's champion from the SFC, insisted on the fairness of the fight for the championship title. In others, it was revealed that X1 interfered during the fighter's contract renewal, which led to many rumors about Wheesung's plans for the future. X1 raised the stakes and delayed notice periods. SFC had no choice but to proceed with caution, as this could lead to an increase in the total purse for the fight. Lee Wheesung's future, which remained unclear for so long, has finally become clearer. Director X1 was in a good mood, but things were not so brilliant. Do-shik made excuses that he did everything he could. In this contract, Do-shik increased the terms to 400 million won per fight, along with a whopping 1 billion down payment. However, the SFC did not give up on Lee Wheesung, but decided to first announce negotiations. Before Cheek no longer thought that anything would come of it. The SFC has no pride, but there is plenty of money. It's unlikely they'll release a guy who wins every fight, so Wheesung is no longer available. X1 director Yang Gong-ho said that he would handle everything himself. His calm angered him to the point of chic. He was well acquainted with the boss's stubbornness. He lay down calmly on the sofa and listened to Do-shik yelling to him that everything was lost. You just need to wait. In all situations there are exceptions. Do-shik didn't know what the boss was up to, but he hoped that his expectations would be met. The head of the SFC, White, and the main match manager, Shelby, met in the fight hall. White had something important to talk about. Although he didn't miss out on Lee Wheesung, he was unhappy that because of James Caan's agent, they only signed a contract for 3 fights. Shelby believed that he shouldn't miss out on Wheesung, but the problem was that this guy was in high demand right now. For now, White has managed to delay X1's offer, but since the terms of the next contract are unknown, they need to come up with a plan. Shelby looked closely at the boss. Is he talking about being a champion? White asked him to keep his voice down. Even if everything works out for Wheesung, it won't happen by itself. We still need to make sure that the guy can pull it off. Shelby replied that since 3 fights went in the same vein, the picture should become clearer in the next fight. If Wheesung wins, his value will increase. If he loses, he will need to find weaker opponents. White always knew Shelby could be relied upon. Shelby thought about the list of possible candidates. White outlined the timeline within a year. Shelby wondered what weight class to choose, and White left it up to the discretion of the fight director. The fight, of course, needs to be considered within the framework of the tournament. This will help increase sales through advertising. When White left, Shelby wondered which was better, lightweight or welterweight. Wheesung and his father were playing a game. Wheesung won for the 3rd time and Dad was very angry. Where is the respect for elders? Who raised the guy? Mom interrupted the game and called the men to dinner. Over dinner, she asked her son why they hadn't heard anything about his girlfriend yet. A big holiday is coming. He himself said that her mother died, and she does not maintain a relationship with her father. A girl shouldn't spend the whole weekend alone. The father also believed that they should see their son's girlfriend. She seems really cool on TV. Let the guy bring her to the holidays. Wheesung promised that he would ask Yoo-jin if she would like to come visit them. Yoo-jin sharply rejected such a proposal. She did it so categorically that Wheesung's jaw dropped. What did she say? He, of course, assumed that this was possible, but he did not expect that she would resist so much. Her parents are waiting for her, especially since her father is her fan. Yoo-jin replied that she definitely wouldn't come. Wheesung decided not to impose himself, but Yoo-jin reminded her that his parents were waiting for her. Wheesung replied that they didn't insist on it because they didn't want to burden the girl, but they didn't want her to spend the holidays alone. Yoo-jin was indignant. How do they know that she will be alone? Wheesung admitted that he told them. Yoo-jin decided that it would be impolite to refuse when someone called you with such good intentions. She began to think about what to buy, so as not to go to a party empty-handed, and that it was better to wear a skirt or trousers. Wheesung's parents greeted the guests at the door with smiles. Yoo-jin smiled and introduced herself. She thanked Wheesung's parents for the invitation. Mom took the girl by the hand and led her into the room, where the table was already set. Yoo-jin simply said that she can be addressed as you, and called Wheesung's mother Mom. Mom's face reflected a range of feelings. When Yoo-jin turned to the guy's father, Papa, he also became speechless and widened his eyes. The dinner went well. The parents told funny stories from their son's childhood. Wheesung's mother thanked Wheesung for accepting their invitation. The girl admitted that it is very difficult for her to be alone. Wheesung's mother shared with her that she herself lost her parents early, and it was very difficult for her. There was only one person next to her current husband. They want to support Yoo-jin. Let her not refuse. Yoo-jin laughed and promised that she would come to them often. The Parian's mother warmly hugged the girl. In Commander Attack's training room, everyone was happy to see Wheesung. Coach Park said he had news. I received an offer from the SFC for the last Sunday in December, but it is unusual. If Wheesung wins, he will get the opportunity to participate in the championship fight. Wheesung was shocked by the news. Finally, he will receive such an offer. And who is his current rival? In a nightclub, a man was rocking the dance floor. A bored girl was sitting behind the bar. A tall, fair-haired man approached her and asked why she was so sad. He assumed that it was because there were no attractive men nearby and suggested having a drink in a pleasant place with a charming gentleman. She replied that the proposal was interesting, but she came with a man. The guy was sure that this was someone who went wild on the dance floor. A bald man with a tattoo was heading towards them. The girl said in fear that her interlocutor had better leave. The bald man approached the guy and advised him to disappear. The blonde replied that he did not know that the girl was busy and went to the exit. But the bald man didn't want to let him go so easily. He wanted a scandal. His friends followed him. They said that the blonde was getting ready to leave, but was still here. The guy replied that people like the bald guy fall for this very easily. The hooligans rushed at the guy, and one of them immediately received a strong blow. The blonde deftly dodged blows and delivered his own. The bald man realized that they were targeting the wrong person. He took out a knife and went at the enemy. He warned that if his opponent used a knife, he would die on the spot. Baldy decided not to risk it and ran away. The blonde lit a cigarette, thinking that the girl was beautiful. A man appeared next to him and took his cigarette away. The blonde asked what the coach is doing here. The coach sighed. Again, his ward was pestering women and got into a fight. But it doesn't matter. He handed him the text of the application. What's on the line in this proposition is a championship fight. The coach said that before 10 in the morning, the guy must make a list of desired changes. He warns in advance that if the guy is not in shape, he will not join the team. Wheesung watched the X1 fights. Sung Chan became stronger and therefore rose to 4th place. Coach Park said that the level of their fighting has changed significantly. James sent what they discussed with the SFC. The coach and Wheesung began to look at the proposals. SFC offered more than $500,000 in payment for the fight. Wheesung will receive this amount regardless of whether he wins or loses. James Khan was a very tough negotiator. Wheesung wanted the fight to be third rather than co-main, and waiting for the end of the year is too long. Wheesung would like to fight as soon as possible. Puck wrote everything down carefully. But October is coming soon. Does the guy assess the situation soberly? Wheesung replied that October would be nice. Fury can also complete the preparation in 1 month. Coach Park asked, does Wheesung even know who Fury is? He prefers stand-up fighting, is good at grappling and defending, and has a fiery temper. He moves well and is known for his ability to knock out an opponent with a heavy blow. The coach replied that this is why Fury is in 2nd place. Wheesung objected that it would be a battle of blows in any case, and nothing would change from the extra months of preparation. In addition, after the fight with Taylor, Wheesung realized that he fought much better than he expected. Now just after watching the video, Wheesung can immediately identify the pros and cons. If he holds out for at least 1 minute during a fight, he will definitely be able to understand what to expect ahead and how to counter it. The coach was indignant. Does the guy know how many rising stars have failed because of their overconfidence? But Wheesung wanted to test himself, whether it was pride or his sharp eye. The coach thought about it and agreed to Wheesung's proposal. But will the opposing team agree to this and move the fight to an earlier date? Contrary to Park Sung-hoon's fears, Lee Wheesung's request was immediately granted. There is just over a month left to prepare. Sang-guk suggested an alternative, joint training with the Nova team in the USA at a local gym. The idea was to get used to the new place and take advantage of the benefits of the gym. Hwang Sang-guk, Park Sung-hoon, Lee Junghwan, Kang Yoon-jung, and Lee Wheesung decided to go to Los Angeles. The news that they would not see each other for a long time due to training, Wheesung told Yoo-jin only before leaving. But on the day of departure, he saw Yoo-jin at the airport. Coach Park said that she was going with them too. When they arrived, Wheesung and Yoon-jung fell onto the bed in the room. Hyun-jung honestly admitted to Wheesung that he did not intend to become a champion. It's just a job. Like in an office, everyone earns a living as best they can. He changed the subject and asked when Wheesung would announce that he and Yoo-jin were dating. Wheesung didn't even imagine that anyone knew about this. It sounded like a bolt from the blue. The next day, they were greeted by Nova team director Tom Clark. Sang-guk in turn thanked Clark for training together. They went into the hall where the fighters were already training. Wheesung noted that they all wear gloves, and their movements are quite good. Clark told Sang-guk that the person he was interested in was also in the hall. He called out to Brian Palmer and said that people from the attack team wanted to meet him. Wheesung recalled that the decision to train with Team Nova was also because Brian Palmer is a member of it. It was he who defeated Fury twice in fights where there was a purely exchange of blows. Palmer warmly addressed Wheesung. He knew that the guy had a fight planned with Fury. Palmer hoped they would have a good time. Fury sat on a bench in the gym and watched a video that he really liked. The coach began to scold him for not training to his full potential. Is he even ready to fight? The coach told him the bad news. Lee had arrived and was training with Palmer. But Fury laughed. When Palmer beat him, he was 22 years old and had only been in the sport for 3 years. Now he is completely different, and his fighting style has also changed. And Fury went to spar. The coach noted that even with an opponent of a lower weight category, Fury manages to match neither speed nor mobility, and even suppresses him. Fury knocked his sparring partner to the floor. His striking technique is at a high level. Plus, he reads timings quite well due to his keen instincts. This fighter has undeniably outstanding talent, thanks to which he remained undefeated in the SFC and rose to 3rd place in the lightweight division. The coach thought that Lee was certainly a strong opponent, but could his talent surpass Fury's level? Lee Wheesung was working hard at this time. He sparred with Palmer. Wheesung threw a straight right hand, but Palmer dodged it. Lee Wheesung came at Palmer with a hail of punches, but Palmer blocked them. Noticing a gap in his opponent's defense, Wheesung struck to the body. The coach separated the athletes. That's enough for today. The fighters thanked each other for their excellent work. Brian Palmer felt that he still had a lot of strength, but he could no longer overcome his youth. A teammate asked him who he thought would win, the Asian or Fury. Palmer believed that Wheesung had a good chance. When sparring with Lee, when they followed the rules, he initially had difficulty finding a weak spot due to the differences from MMA. But in just 10 days, they had 5 sparring sessions. In today's sparring, Palmer was late in parrying Lee's counterattack after feinting a leg kick. Wheesung would have been able to catch such a moment in such a situation only if he tirelessly monitored his opponent's movements. It's as if he sees right through the enemy. Of course, Fury had grown a lot in recent years, but looking at Wheesung, Palmer believed that Fury had cause for concern. 5 days before the competition, Wheesung began losing weight by continuing his intensive training. Yoo-jin gave him every support. She took him for walks before training, which helped the guy feel better. It was the hardest weight loss of his life, but he did well. Wheesung was very pleased that his girlfriend was worried about him. Yoo-jin went to the toilet and was gone for a long time. Wheesung went to look for her and saw her standing with Fury. He went to them, loudly asking where the girl had gone. Fury laughed. He really didn't know that Lee Wheesung's girlfriend was next to him. Yoo-jin said that Fury offered to buy her a drink, and no matter how much she refused, he became more and more insistent. Fury had no intention of leaving. He leaned over to Yoo-jin and said that she would regret sending him away, and would she like to know his room number. Wheesung stepped forward. This idiot keeps hitting on a woman who has another boyfriend. Fry replied that it is natural for women to be attracted to attractive men. Wheesung advised Fury to get out. He added some strong words. Fury was very surprised. This Asian man swore at him. Yoo-jin tried to prevent an argument. Too many people were already paying attention to them. She dragged Wheesung out of the hall with difficulty. The guy promised that he would beat Fury up during the fight. But Fury had no intention of stopping. He called out to Wheesung, and when he turned around, he punched him. Wheesung immediately dodged. He thought his opponent was a big idiot. Fury was unpleasantly surprised that his opponent was able to dodge at such close range. Wheesung clenched his fists. He calmly wanted to retreat, but they could end the argument here too. Both opponents took a stance, but Yoo-jin was the first to react and delivered a powerful blow to Fury's face, screaming that he was completely out of his mind. She shouted that she was disgusted to look at the idiot and let him get lost. Wheesung widened his eyes. He grabbed Yoo-jin by the waist and pulled her away from Fury. It was difficult to do this. The girl was furious and resisted. Fury couldn't take his eyes off her. What a woman. The next day, the recording of the conflict spread across the internet, and everyone was discussing the relationship between Wheesung and Yoo-jin. Finally, the day of battle arrived. Wheesung was very quiet, which worried his comrades. Sang-guk approached Wheesung and advised him to throw all unnecessary thoughts out of his head. Wheesung replied that he was completely focused on the fight, but everyone saw that he was not himself. Sang-guk hoped that the guy was no longer a beginner and would cope. You just have to trust him. The third fight of the main card of SFC 271 begins. In the blue corner, Lee Wheesung, blessed with talent, but his appearance is sharply different from usual. Is that the problem? Usually he actively responds to attacks, but this is the first time viewers have seen such a reaction. In the red corner is Anthony Fury. However, the song he comes out to is very specific. Girl, I love you. Anyone understands that this is a provocation. Fury wants to provoke Lee Wheesung. What was Fury up to? He went to the enemy half. What is he doing? This is bad form. He approached Yu Jin and said that she is still beautiful today. And the place where she was hit still hurts. Does this mean he can demand compensation? Yu Jin replied that if Fury had not been a fool, nothing would have happened. But the fact remains that she hit him. So he came up with a great deal. And he immediately reported her. If he wins, she will sleep with him. Yu Ding realized that in front of her was a crazy idiot. Fury was approached by members of Wheesung's team, and he was forced to say that it was all just a joke, and he was leaving. But if Yu Jin changes his mind, let him come to him after the fight. His trainer was already running towards him, dragging the idiot back to his place. Fortunately, Fury entered the ring safely after causing a commotion. The fighter stood in the center of the octagon. Fury has 15 victories, of which 13 ended in early victory. He is currently on a 7-fight winning streak via TKO. Today, one of the fighters suffered the first defeat in his career. Fury asked in Wheesung's ear if he was interested in what he was talking about with the girl. Although the Asian does not speak English, both fighters went to their corners, ignoring the contact with their gloves. Experts predict that everyone has a 5-5 chance of winning. The battle has begun. As soon as the start of the fight was announced, both fighters began to rapidly move around the octagon in search of their opponent's weaknesses. And so they simultaneously shortened the distance, literally in the blink of an eye. Fury struck his opponent with his left hand with lightning speed. Lee Wheesung took a hit from the start. How did he make such a mistake? While he comes to his senses, Fury closes the distance. He seizes the moment and throws a series of punches, performs a feint and simultaneously throws a right hook. However, Lee guesses this move and prepares a counterattack. Fury dodges the blow. The right hook was false. After dodging, Fury throws a left hook. Another series of blows follows. Lee Wheesung can only defend himself. Coach Park bitterly tells Sang-guk that Wheesung was never able to concentrate. Apparently, he is not one of those who can forget about a problem with a snap of his fingers. Sang-guk silently watches as Lee Wheesung defends himself from Fury's powerful attacks. Fury continues to throw straight punches. Lee Wheesung makes an unexpected attack, but in the end he himself takes the hook. Fury tries to punch again but this time misses. And now he is breaking the distance. Even though his position is currently quite advantageous, he is very skilled in hit-and-run tactics. Lee Wheesung makes an unexpected direct attack. Fury dodges all attacks and throws a control hook. While Lee Wheesung recovers from the counterattack, Fury jumps to the side and breaks the distance again. Coach Park clutches his head. What's happening is crazy. Normally, Wheesung would have already tied his opponent's body with his legs or started throwing punches. Sang-guk is in doubt. Lee Wheesung doesn't look nervous. He's even calmer than usual. Wheesung, meanwhile, analyzes the enemy's actions. Check hook, counter, then dive. Fury is disappointed. They told him that the idiot had trashed Taylor and now he was helpless. Fury lands another straight punch. Lee counters him. It looks like Lee is going to counterattack after parrying, but Fury sees the blow and moves away. Without even trying to reach out, Lee Wheesung gets closer with an instep. Fury naturally retreats, but Lee Wheesung moves forward with his fists out. In the blink of an eye, Fury is at the net. Lee shifted all his weight to his front leg. It looks like he finally decided to fight seriously. Fury decides to pretend he's cornered and finish it off with a counterattack. Lee Wheesung dodges Fury's punch. Fury dives and then Lee Wheesung looms over him. Fury is in a very disadvantageous position. Lee Wheesung lands a downward kick to Fury's head. Fury's head cannot withstand such a powerful blow. Punches land on Fury. He's unable to put up a guard due to such an unexpected attack. Fury tries to retreat any way he can, but Lee quickly catches up with him. Fury doesn't have time to stop a flying knee to the face. Everything is swimming before his eyes. He needs time to come to his senses. But Lee Wheesung doesn't give him a chance to come to his senses, throwing punches to the body. Next comes a hook to Fury's jaw. It's less of a punch and more of a slap in the face. The stands are roaring. How is this possible? Fury gets slapped unilaterally. Sang-guk figures out that Wheesung was intentionally getting hit and using careless attacks to make sure Fury was on the same page. Lee Wheesung hits Fury on the thigh and he instantly loses his balance. Fury deflects the next blow and wants to push his opponent hard, but he easily dodges. Now Wheesung easily avoids something that only recently he could hardly block. It's as if he sees right through the trajectory of his opponent's attack. Lee Wheesung ends up at the net, pushes off with his foot, and gives Fury a Superman punch. This is a very strong blow. The movement is so spectacular that it literally looks like a circus performance. Fury falls. As expected, Lee Wheesung is in the ring, and is by no means a fighter who is easy to unsettle. Lee launches a counterattack. Unlike what viewers have seen before, Lee Wheesung immediately rushes at Fury as soon as he falls. However, Fury quickly gets to his feet. But a back kick follows from Wheesung, and Fury cannot keep his balance. He is thrown back. The fighters move towards the net too quickly. Fury needs to get into a defensive stance as soon as possible. Fury defends his head but gets hit to the body. Fury is in big trouble. Lee Wheesung grabbed him. Knee strike, another. Fury continues to get hit. The trainer yells at Fury not to stay in the corner but to leave. Fury tries to twist and step aside. He tries to throw a punch to get out of Lee Wheesung's grip. Lee holds Fury tightly in a headlock. Fury tries to strike the opponent's body, but Lee read all his movements and puts up a defense. All of Fury's attempts are blocked, and he gets hit with his knee again. Lee Wheesung delivers a simple roundhouse kick to his opponent. He is great for knocking Fury down and reducing his coordination. After a direct kick, Fury simply flies away. Fury tries to get up, but Lee Wheesung doesn't let him get up. Fury gets into a low stance and charges at Lee. The trainer shouts that it's a trap, but Fury can't stop himself. Lee Wheesung deliberately provoked the clinch. Fury already sees the danger, but he can't do anything and gets hit with a jumping knee. Lee Wheesung randomly punches the fallen Fury. It is impossible to defend against this. Lee Wheesung hits Fury so that he knows who he's messing with and remembers it forever. The referee stops the fight. Fury loses by technical knockout, and Lee Wheesung will participate in the fight for the championship. This is the pose of a winner, raising a finger to the sky without saying a word. Now Lee Wheesung only has to become a champion. Yoo-jin runs into the ring and kisses her boyfriend in front of everyone. All the spectators widened their eyes. They saw Lee Wheesung's girlfriend for the first time. After the end of all the events of the tournament, an after-party was organized. The name was loud, but in fact they just set a table in the hotel lobby. However, there were enough drinks and snacks, the staff provided good service, so everything was quite decent. His comrades made fun of Wheesung and called him a kissing star. Today, after the fight and the kiss from Yoo-jin, all the journalists literally attacked him and he barely escaped. Mr. James almost became hoarse. Yoo-jin flatly refused to go to the party with Wheesung. Wheesung didn't understand her. She made the porridge herself and is now hiding. James said the act was good for the youngsters' ratings. Coach Park praised Wheesung. The fight exceeded all expectations. The guy showed who the master really is. Wheesung reminded him that he thought the guy was arrogant and would be knocked out in one hit. Park replied that the outcome of the fight was impossible to predict. Therefore, on the world stage, many strong fighters experience the bitterness of defeat. This is especially hard for those who, like Wheesung, went to the top undefeated and are at the peak of their form. Having lost, they simply feel defeated, because they overestimate themselves. Some become so obsessed that they go astray by taking doping and drugs. Therefore, Park was afraid that Wheesung might repeat their mistake. But after today's fight, everyone calmed down. Wheesung has proven that he is not intoxicated by fame. Now Park is waiting for his student to bring home the championship belt. When Wheesung was about to leave, the chief coordinator of the SFC tour director Watson called out to him. In the 60s and 70s, Watson was the manager of legendary boxer John Fraser, and is now responsible for organizing tournaments. In addition, he acts as a peacemaker, resolves minor disputes and advises fighters. He congratulated Wheesung on his victory, and asked him to forgive Fury. That guy is not bad, but when it comes to women he always shows off and often makes mistakes. Wheesung replied that there was no problem. Watson said that he wanted to introduce Wheesung to one fighter who approached them at that time. It was Brian Rowntree, the number 5 lightweight. The guys shook hands. Wheesung knew very well who Brian Rowntree was. A year older than him, 15 wins out of 15. Today he is considered the main contender for the champion title. Rowntree said that he himself asked John to introduce them. Brian was surprised that Wheesung had such small hands, and how he managed to take down fighters with them in one round. He wanted to fight Wheesung in the next fight. Wheesung reminded that his next fight is for the champion title. Rowntree replied that if Wheesung takes the belt from Alves, then the next fight will be with him, and he will teach Wheesung how to properly knock out opponents. Wheesung replied that if they meet in the Octagon, he himself will be able to teach the guy a lot. John saw that the guys were getting along and said it was time for him to leave. It was time for Rowntree too. They said goodbye to Wheesung. Wheesung looked after them in admiration. What a cheeky fellow. How confident he is. One fine November evening, Yoo-jin was playing a computer game with Wheesung and his dad. Yoo-jin confidently won the game. Dad was delighted and praised the girl very much. Wheesung kept losing and getting angry. The fight was very intense. But Wheesung again lost to the skill of his girlfriend. He demanded another round, but then Yoo-jin's phone rang. Instead of a name, the word scoundrel was typed in. The girl dropped the call. When Wheesung walked Yoo-jin home, he asked if her father called her while they were playing. She nodded. Wheesung asked why she didn't answer her father's calls. Would she like to meet him? Yoo-jin replied that Wheesung does not know what kind of relationship she has with her father, to which the guy noted that if she finally wanted to break up with her dad, she would block him forever. It is better to meet and clarify everything than to wander in your thoughts. If she's nervous, a guy can keep her company. They approached the house where the girl's father lived and rang the doorbell. The father came out to meet them. He invited the young people to enter. The father was glad that his daughter came to him with a young man. He apologized that his apartment was so bad. Yoo-jin asked if her father was still living with the woman who kicked her out. The father replied that they had separated a long time ago. Yoo-jin said sharply that she understood why her father suddenly began to look for meetings with her. He was left alone in a squalid apartment, but he himself is to blame for this. The father said he wanted to apologize. He regrets that he caused her incurable wounds and wants to show that he is trying to change. He doesn't drink or smoke, is looking for a job and saving money. He wants to become a father for whom his daughter will not be ashamed. Yoo-jin did not lie to her father. He left her and went to another woman to live happily ever after. It was very difficult for her. And why does he make her feel guilty for coming to him too late? Dad continued to ask for forgiveness. Wheesung intervened in the conversation. Yoo-jin is a wonderful girl and it's sad that she just listens to apologies. Maybe Dad needs to do something. Dad rose to his feet, walked up to his daughter and hugged her. Yoo-jin also hugged her dad. Father and daughter made peace and cried. They said goodbye very warmly. Yoo-jin promised to visit her father as soon as she has free time. Her father gave her her mother's engagement ring. He decided that it would be better if Yoo-jin had it. The girl was very touched by this. She promised to take care of the ring. In the SFC training room, White discussed company affairs with the manager. Revenue from ticket sales amounted to more than $6 million. This is the second highest sales figure of any tournament this year. Fights between famous fighters did not bring such profits, and Lee Wheesung was able to single-handedly raise sales to this level. But White was still unhappy. They gave Lee the opportunity to fight for the championship too early. There could be another fight. It's all because of agent Lee Wheesung. The manager said Cruz sent a document confirming his intention to return. This interested White. He demanded that Cruz be scheduled to fight as soon as possible. When a player withdraws from the SFC due to injury or retirement, he must provide the relevant documents to the SFC, and then take a doping test. White asked how things are going in the lightweight division. The manager responded that Alves was currently the provisional champion, with Maguire in first place and Lee in second. Fury is in third place. Rowntree is in fourth. A preliminary title fight is scheduled between Alves and Lee. The winner could face Cruz for the overall title. Rowntree can be used to defend the title. White thought Rowntree was a good card. The manager suggested that the situation could develop into a competitive struggle for the championship position. White responded that this was not enough. Anyone can predict such a development of events, but we need to add a little spice. I'd like to have some fun. The trainer in the gym watched Lee Wheesung's fight with Fury and said that the guy was very good. Top-ranked lightweight fighter Alves responded that that's why he's in no rush. He saw Lee fight Brian, and it seemed to him that Lee fought purely on instinct. But starting with the Taylor fight, he analyzes his opponent for a couple of minutes before engaging. He can determine an opponent's fighting style in less than 2 minutes. In other words, during this analysis, you can successfully select the time for the strike. It won't be easy, but it's the best strategy. The fight, although not announced, will certainly take place. The date is only a matter of time. This could happen at any time. Everyone else lost not due to their own stupidity. If Alves is careless, he will end up in the same place as everyone else. Alves has never been arrogant. In addition, his talent, effort, and sincere attitude helped him rise to the status of preliminary champion. The coach thought he was too relaxed with such a talented student. This could be a fatal mistake. At this time, the coach received a call from the SFC and was informed that Cruz had returned. Alves was worried what would happen to the championship fight with Lee Wheesung. Cruz was the champion, and Alves is still the preliminary champion. The situation became uncertain. The girl was sitting at the bar with a bottle of wine. The restless Fury approached her and offered to drink together, but the girl replied that she was not alone, and another girl approached Fury from behind. Fury was shocked that he had made such a mistake and looked after the women for a long time. He was distracted by loud laughter and a voice. It seemed that luck had returned from the great Fury. He was approached by former SFC champion Lionel Cruz, who asked if Fury was ignoring him because he was a former champion. They sat down for a drink, and Fury declared that White was a petty bastard. How long has it been since Cruz took off his belt and took a break? 1 year and 7 months since its restoration in April. Fury thought and said that it was not White who was a scoundrel, but Cruz who was sick in the head. Cruz laughed. Cruz said that he only left the belt for a while and signed a new contract on good terms. Fury warned Cruz that Lee Wheesung is stronger than he thinks. Cruz still believed Alves would win. And it is not the one who was knocked down in the first round who can judge the next fight. Fury growled angrily. He knows Alves is very strong. But Lee Wheesung is completely different. He has unreal talent, Fury convinced Cruz. Cruz was speechless by such confessions from his comrade. He suggested to see in the future if Wheesung would be the one to fight him at the top. Cruz was officially stripped of his title. He is scheduled to face a lower-ranked fighter at the April tournament, and the bout between Lee Wheesung and Alves has been billed as an overall title fight. Lee Wheesung and Park Sung-hoon discussed the results and conditions of the title fight, as reported by SFC. Almost everything that Lee Wheesung's team asked for was rejected. Only the champion conditions have been preserved. Only the date was not changed, the last Saturday of March. That is the SFC 276 tournament, which is held in Brazil at the Lunes Arena in Rio de Janeiro. And weighing on site. This shocked Wheesung. Coach Park confirmed that Alves' team knows that the Koreans will have difficulty adapting to the wet Brazilian weather and are trying to reduce Wheesung's skill in this way. There is no direct flight, so Perla takes almost 30 hours. Plus participation in the main event, and most importantly, the fact that Brazil is conservative in the sport involving its athletes and will try to tear Wheesung apart. The guy admitted that these were truly the worst of the worst conditions. The only plus is that the amount for the fight is $900,000. This encouraged Wheesung. And this is just what the guy will get for participating in the fight. Just the fact that Wheesung's fight is included in the program guarantees a turnover of hundreds of billions, Coach Park thought. This makes Wheesung the goose that lays the golden eggs. Everyone must be crazy to interact with him in any way. But Taran was not going to say this to his student, so as not to see his smug face. Wheesung admitted at this time that he had expectations for Cruz. The real champion is Lionel Cruz. But what can you do? Now you need to focus on Alves. The coach replied that then Wheesung must win. If he wins, he will soon be able to fight Cruz. Wheesung did not even doubt his victory. The guy began hard training. Meanwhile, Coach Park watched Alves' fights. As expected, Alves is a near-perfect six-way all-rounder. He is currently the strongest opponent. Even if he gets hit in the chest, he recovers almost instantly because he has a strong base. Juan, with whom Wheesung was sparring, stopped and asked his friend with a concerned face, "Does he have problems with his right shoulder?" When Wheesung throws a punch, he barely moves his shoulder. The impact force is also strangely weak. Wheesung himself realized that something was wrong. His muscles ache slightly. Hwang realized the seriousness of the problem, and he immediately called Coach Park Sung-hoon, who began to probe Wheesung's shoulder. There seemed to be no problems with the rotator cuff. Wheesung repeated that his muscles were slightly aching. The coach raised Wheesung's hand again, and he said that his shoulder was a little numb. Everyone decided that the best thing to do was go to the hospital. The doctor reported after the x-ray that everything was completely destroyed. Coach and Wheesung were speechless at the news. The doctor burst out laughing. It was a joke. The patient only has a minor sprain of the deltoid muscle. Coach Park looked so tense that Wheesung calmed him down. He said that there was nothing wrong. However, Wheesung should have refrained from training. Otherwise, there may be a serious sprain. The guy is still young. He will fully recover in about 2 weeks. Coach Park turned pale. There are 5 weeks left until the fight. If you miss 2 weeks, you have 3 weeks left. Since he will have to fly out 2 weeks before the fight to adjust to the local climate and time difference, Wheesung will only have 1 week to train in Korea. Wheesung decided that the title fight had made him nervous and overexerted. The doctor prescribed a course of physical therapy. A guy should not do intense exercise. Coach Park was calculating when they could continue training. It's embarrassing to even call it an injury. People experience this all the time and may consider it an exaggeration. However, Alves is a strong opponent. It cannot be fought in an imperfect state. Moreover, the coach was worried about the stress Wheesung would be under due to the lack of preparation. This is a title fight, so the workload will be greater than usual, and he has an injury that he has never encountered before. The psychological aspect greatly affects the fighter, and the conditions are bad this time. At this time, Wheesung, who was supposed to be at home, burst into the office. He brought beer and wanted the coach not to sit alone. The guy asked directly, "Does Coach Park want him to give up this competition?" The coach replied that it was better to use common sense. If we postpone the fight now, another opportunity will soon arise. If Wheesung comes out unprepared and loses, it will be a long time for another title shot. And then his regrets and feelings of deprivation will be much stronger. And the coach will blame himself for not stopping his student. But at the same time, the coach hopes that Wheesung will not give up. Wheesung doesn't understand. What's the problem then? Park Sung-hoon told him that when he became the head coach, he was thinking about the long-term care of the athletes and the future of the gym. Here, where many are swayed by emotions, rational judgment is very important. He always told fighters that they should only focus on results. But when it comes to the title fight, it seems to him that he needs to act according to the will of his heart. But he continues to think that he is making an irreparable mistake. Wheesung replied that he perfectly understands how the coach cares about all the fighters. But still, he believes that the coach needs to be more lenient with himself. And he won't have to regret his decision, because Wheesung will prove him right with his championship belt. The coach took the can of beer handed to him and they drank together. Wheesung said that it was Coach Park who made him the way he is. They came to an agreement. Alves heard in training that Lee was injured. The coach said it was just a slight sprain, but Alves knew it would interfere with his opponent's training. Wheesung was unlucky. Training will be interrupted as well as adaptation after the flight. The coach said that they were lucky on the contrary. Alves will receive the Interbrand champion title and huge money. Alves said rudely that the coach had become very relaxed. Lee Wheesung is a monster who knocks out opponents in the first round. He trained for 2 months before getting injured. He is still a tough opponent, and if Alves lets his guard down, he will be knocked out just like the rest. The coach better help Alves not lose his composure before the fight. Wheesung focused on rehabilitation and underwent physical therapy and massage. At the same time, he strengthened his muscle flexibility and endurance through training and yoga. This turned out to be quite possible. There are many methods of training without using the shoulder. And when his shoulder healed, he resumed full training. Due to his busy schedule, he stayed in Korea 2 weeks longer than planned. As a result, with difficulty, he managed to return his physical form to its previous level. With only 8 days left before the competition, Lee Wheesung and the team flew to Brazil. It was not easy, but they fought to the hotel. The flight took 30 hours. They had just arrived, and Wheesung had already almost died due to the heat. James advised us to remember to take precautions, always be together when attending events, and leave valuables at the reception desk. Yesterday, their employee went to a restaurant near the hotel and his wallet was stolen. Sang-guk and Coach Park were afraid of provocations from Brazilian fans. Wheesung needed to gather his courage. Things could get even worse. Brazilian fans are very active. They don't even give you a chance to say anything about the opponent. They immediately shout. Wheesung, who had a title fight, was afraid that everything would be very bad for him. Sang-guk replied that they would do everything necessary according to protocol and leave. The host announced the main event and invited Lee Wheesung to the stage. Wheesung demonstrated his fighting skills. Coach Park was paired with him. Lee Wheesung threw punches. The spectators booed and shouted in disapproval. Wheesung paid no attention to this and continued his open training. The fans showed their disdain for the Asian fighter with all their appearance. Coach Park thought it was too much. No matter what they do, exclamations of disapproval are heard from everywhere. Someone from the audience threw a banana peel onto the stage. Wheesung stopped and asked James to help him translate. He picked up the peel and asked what sick bastard did this. The spectators did not expect such an attack and fell silent. Wheesung was furious and did not choose his expressions. Don't Brazilians know that there is a limit to everything? Or do they think that everyone in Korea is polite and doesn't know how to swear? He will give everyone a good thrashing, and to the one who mimicked his narrow eyes, and to the one who sent him away. But among them there is one whom he can never forgive. He pointed to the boy who was standing near the stage, and he called him to come into the ring. The boy came out and Wheesung demanded that he attack him. The boy deftly kicked Wheesung. Wheesung grabbed his leg and sobbed. He lost. He picked up the boy and shouted that he could not be defeated. This guy won the fight. Alves should fight not Wheesung but this boy. The audience started laughing. Wheesung said that it's great that the fans love their athletes. He understands that they are not booing him because they hate him. But he asks to support Alves during the tournament. Of course, Wheesung will do everything possible to knock out Alves. His goal is the same as the Brazilians, to become a champion. So even though he is a villain to the audience now, in the future, when he fights fighters from other countries, he asks to support him, Lee Wheesung. Timid applause rang out among the audience, and a few seconds later Lee Wheesung was applauded by the entire audience. The Korean team was very pleased with Lee Wheesung's performance. The event ended and a press conference was held the next day. Lee Wheesung and Alves finally met. Wheesung extended his hand to his opponent and offered to fight to the end. But Alves did not accept the outstretched hand. He wanted Lee not to come near him, otherwise Alves was ready to destroy his face right now. James translated Alves's words that he was not going to shake hands with a show-off and a poser. Wheesung recalled that James told him that Alves's contract was terminated long ago, and he was not receiving money for PPV, a service that allows you to watch live broadcasts with full prepayment. Currently, Alves's contract is for 7 fights, and the amount per fight is only $150,000. Wheesung was surprised that Alves received so little. James said that SFC told him that if PPV sales exceeded 500,000, they would give him $1 for each ticket purchased, and $2 if they exceeded 1 million. Wheesung was surprised why, given Alves's level of skill, SFC doesn't raise prices. Alves is very conscientious, and is not interested in anything other than training and matches. If we talk about him, he can be called a real fighter. Wheesung was glad that his opponent was so easy to read. He wished Alves luck at the press conference. Alves called Wheesung an arrogant boy. White greeted Lee Wheesung and asked if his shoulder had recovered. Wheesung replied that everything was perfect. Wheesung reminded White how last time he told the guy to show a tough fight, and that White was giving him a chance. White replied that it looks like Wheesung made good use of this chance. At the press conference, everyone was asking about the condition of Wheesung's shoulder. Someone spread rumors that he had a muscle tear. The guy denied all this, and climate changes will not affect it. Journalists asked how he prepared for the fight with Alves. H.W. Sung replied that nothing new. Everything was as usual. Wheesung considered himself the best striker in the lightweight division, something Alves can only emulate. Alves interrupted Wheesung and advised him to watch his words. It is not appropriate for a fighter to belittle his opponent's performance. Wheesung immediately replied that it is not appropriate to interrupt an opponent when he is answering a question. Alves was asked how he thought the fight would go. He replied that the fight would go the way he wanted. Lee doesn't know how to get out of a crisis situation. The longer the fight goes on, the more tired Lee will become. His breathing will become labored. By the end of the second round, he will be lying on the floor and catching blows. The audience applauded these words. Alves was further asked if this title fight could lead to the winner facing Cruz. How does he feel about this? Alves responded that Cruz was not qualified because he had been gone for a long time. Initially, the fight between Fury and Lee was planned for Alves. Wheesung interrupted the conversation and called Alves a fool. Everyone knows very well that 520,000 PPVs were sold just because Wheesung showed the best fights. You could say he's a golden chicken. Alves is paid a measly 150,000 against the 900 that Wheesung will receive. For whom were these competitions done? Wheesung continued that Alves received $1 from White for the 500,000th sale. He's just a poor loser. Alves said he competes not for money, but to prove his skills. Wheesung retorted that this only proves how pathetic he is. If you don't know how to increase your value. With these words, Wheesung grabbed the championship belt and hung it on himself. This is where he belongs. Alves was ready to kill the bastard. He attacked Wheesung but was restrained. Finally, Wheesung gave Alves the middle finger. The press conference was a success. The scandal was loud.